Welcome to our continuing series of virtual voices focusing on the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. We are very pleased today to be with us Ambassador Elisenda Vives Balmaña, who is the Permanent Representative of Andorra to the United Nations since November 2015. Previously, she served as president of the Andorran National Commission for UNESCO, as head of protocol and administrative affairs of the Conseil General. From 2001 to 2015, she was also the ambassador of the Principality of Andorra in both Italy and Morocco. Ambassador Balmaña held various positions in the Principality's Ministry of Foreign Affairs from 1992 to 2001. She has multiple academic degrees, including philosophy, history, Andorran law, and gender studies, Eastern Asian studies, and comparative politics. She is fluent in Catalan, Spanish, French, and English, and she was born in Barcelona. Over to you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor, it's a pleasure to be invited to the Voice of Andorra to this virtual forum. And it's a real pleasure meeting all of you using this excellent tool that is the virtual conversation. And in this regard, Dr. Durbach, is a privilege to share this screen with you. And also I would like to thank Mrs. Hanifa Medzui, because it's a friend of mine that suggested that we could speak. I could take this opportunity to explain about Andorra. She bets that is an unknown country for most of our colleagues, for most of the area of the United States. I'm not going to ask that if you have heard or even know better about Andorra, but really it was a good idea, because we can show with you so some of our concerns, some of our attitudes, and how a small country can be able or is able to develop politics on its politics here at the United Nations. That is really a very important part for us. And your words with regard to my background, I think they are too high. But in any case, take into account that we are at New York. We are members of the United Nations. We are the permanent mission here, and also we are the embassy to the United States, to Canada, and to Mexico. So that means that our portfolio is really quite large in order to fulfill what is the big challenge to let Andorra to be better known in the international arena and society. So I welcome very gladly the idea of Hanifa, and here we are. Then Andorra is a very dynamic society, but has also a lot of challenges and has a lot of limits. Being in the past quite, we'll say, a poor country, institutions, landscape, have attracted travelers and scholars in the past, and also were the way to keep an independence always. So we never have been part of any other country. We have never been colonized. We always have enjoyed a kind of sovereignty. But nowadays we are enjoying quite good system, way of life, and quite high GDP per capita. So our story to me could be meaningful and could be useful, not because we are becoming an example. We have to be exemplars, but not trying to lecture anyone. But I think that living in peace, living for the people about that, but to make things maybe more clear about how is our landscape and how is our purpose as a country and how do you live. I would like to share with you a video of 6
Located between Spain and France, Andorra is 468 square kilometers, has 77,546 inhabitants, is considered to be one of the safest countries, and has one of the lowest crime rates on the planet. Despite being one of the oldest independent countries, with over 700 years of uninterrupted history, we have never had an army or a war on our territory. Andorra is a historically neutral and welcoming country where citizens of over 100 different nationalities and religions live together peacefully. The official language is Catalan, but Spanish, French, English and Portuguese are also spoken. The legal currency is the euro. Andorra is ranked 5th in the world in terms of the highest life expectancy and for its great quality of life, and is ranked as one of the healthiest countries with one of the best healthcare systems in the world. Contributing in part to this is its optimum air quality on 91% of days, the 2,000 annual hours of sun, and the fact that 90% of the country is made up of mountains, forests, rivers and lakes, all of which are accessible thanks to more than 60 mountain trails. Full of Romanesque art, 10% of our country has been recognized by UNESCO as World Heritage Sites, and we're working to become the first country to be considered as a World Biosphere Reserve. Our public system offers 3 models of education free of charge: the Andorran, the Spanish and the French, and an international baccalaureate. This educational offer is complemented with private school options, such as the British College and Agora International, and the opportunity to continue with higher education exists at the University of Andorra and specialised centres such as the Andorran Aviation Academy and Vatel. Each year, we receive 8 million visitors who are mainly attracted by the shopping. Shops in Andorra only close for 4 days of the year. But also shows such as Cirque du Soleil, exclusive offers in health and wellness, as well as our mountain sports. Our ski resorts offer 300 kilometers of slopes and have the latest technology in snow management and the creation of artificial snow, which guarantees excellent ski seasons. In fact, they're considered to be among the best in Europe and host World Cup events in alpine and mountain skiing. In summer, the slopes become the stage for other big events, such as the Mountain Bike World Cup. Andorra has established itself as a host country for many types of large-scale events, including the Tour de France and the Ibero-American Heads of State Summit. Our economy is centered around the services sector, mainly the financial, with personal and business services among others. The nominal GDP per capita is €35,995, above the EU's average. And our unemployment rate is 1.7%, one of the lowest in Europe. Our tax framework is very competitive. Business tax, personal income tax, and tax on revenue for non-residents is no more than 10%. General indirect tax is 4.5%. Furthermore, we have agreements in order to avoid double imposition with several countries, and we're negotiating an association agreement with the EU. Andorra has become an attractive country for international investors. Since initiating the process of economic opening in 2012, foreign investment has grown around 500% in less than a decade, resulting in the introduction of new sectors of opportunity. We've recently been regarded as the second most fiscally attractive country in the world in which to invest because of our tax framework, our adaptation to European norms and transparency, and political and judicial stability. But not just to invest in, also to live in. The country of the Pyrenees is becoming a true living lab for innovation, with projects in areas such as mobility, energy, the environment, and tourism. We are establishing one of the first national data hubs in the world. It will be a visualization and data analysis environment in which the public sector, the private and citizens can collaborate together. In addition to this, we're also developing a drone lab with a diversity of applications for emergency situations and snow management. And the Casa de la Montaña is a living lab for innovation in the mountains, where different projects will be carried out in areas such as natural disaster management, sports and mountain tourism, and even the following of sports competitions in real time. In competition, it's not about being the best, but about being unique. And Andorra is a unique destination in which to invest.
Thank you for watching this video. And as I said, is really very business oriented, and we are not asking you directly to invest in our country. But anyway, you have been aware how it's our landscape, that is 100% mountains, and our position in Europe between France and Spain also has been very important in our history. But now 2023 is really a very timely moment to remember that is our 30th anniversary of accession to the United Nations. And as a small country also, we are part of this community with the same voice that other states. It was really an aspirational strategy in 1993. And why it was important that year? Because from our part, we adopted a constitution that allow us really to have a modern institutions considering that there was a separation of powers. And we were able then to ask to United Nations to be admitted. That was a long process, and we have to be discussing with France mainly, and also to ask some opinion on to Spain at that moment as well, because Spain doesn't have any relationship with Andorra institutional, but with France, as you know very well, yes, because the president of the French Republic is elected by French people, of course, but is also a co-prince, is part of our institutions. That means it's half of the head of the state. The other half, if I may, because it's a kind of diarchy, is a bicephal presidency, is a bishop that is not elected by Andorrans neither, but is designated by the Holy See. So our institutions are very old, are medieval in our origins, but after this all time of history, we decided at the end of the 20th century really to develop our will, our project, our presence in the international community, and also developing our own responsibilities. That was the important part. And we have also to take into account that the 1993 was a time of a special situation, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the collapse of the Soviet Union. It was a moment of expansion of United Nations. So here we are again being part of the international arena. And becoming part of the United Nations, we've also discovered that there were more small countries, many more than we thought. Of course, we had the relationship with our friends in Europe, Liechtenstein, Monaco, San Marino, just to mention the smallest one. But we discovered that the Caribbean Sea, the Pacific Islands also were size that were comparable with ours. When I say discovered, it was not that we never heard about them, of course, but we felt that we were part of this community, and most of the countries, half of them had the same conditions of resources, human resources, financial resources, and also the same conditions limiting the development or even geographically. And why is important for a country like ours to be part United Nations. It's a matter of recognition. That was a very important one. It's a part of our work here. As Hanifa suggested, we have to be maybe better known. We have also a new responsibility that was absolutely unknown to us until the moment, that was to be part of the international community. Before 1993, Andorra didn't have any competence in international action. So we tried to be part, for instance, to the UNESCO, was not possible. Another multilateral organization, no way to do that. So it was also a new responsibility to cope with international challenges, and also trying to develop our own voice, that it has been an exercise that we have been trying to exercise as well during this time. And diplomacy was new for us. And the United Nations was the first multilateral organization that Andorra joined. And why? Because also it was not only the international recognition, as I mentioned, it was a guarantee that we will stay, we will rest for forever, if you can use the expression, as an independent state, and all the rights and obligations that are supposed that states already got. And diplomacy for capital letters is at United Nations one of the best places to learn, one of the best places to be contributing, of course, to be seen, but also that means that to be responsible at. For the anecdote, let me maybe say that even with Andorra didn't have any international capacity before 1993, the ancestors, the Andorran rulers, have been really excellent, maybe the best diplomats. Andorra has been an independent state, as I said, sovereign for many centuries, almost 8. And why that? Because they were able, the people there were able to create institutions to fulfill expectations that could discover a kind of balance among powers. And they were always very skilled, because you remember that the story of the countries that we are surrounded, France and Spain, has been imperial for many years, for many centuries. They were able to convince Napoleon, for instance, that not to grab Andorra, not to put this country under his rule. So we think that really diplomacy has been something that has been exercised by Andorran people for many years, but it was in another formal space, very different than what is United Nations, where we have to discuss each other and many things. And what have we do, or what are we doing at United Nations? Of course, we try to contribute to common goods. We have to develop things that we are able to respond. So we are not compromised with things that we are not able to have our own experience. So we are going together with the community, and of course our priorities are human rights, peace and security, development, international law, the pillars, the main pillars, and transferring our values on that, the values of Andorra to the pillars. There are some areas that we try also to develop and to be more active. That means education. Education is one of our priorities. The SDGs also have a special one for that. But before before that moment in 2015, or the adoption of the SDGs and the Agenda 2030 for Andorra, education has been key to change our pattern, to open our society to other knowledge, because the mountains you have seen in this landscape that were full of buildings and cars and lights and so on, in the past were just empty, just cattle and very rural areas. So this development also has been part of education, has been the result of that, of other kind of business or other kind of perspectives. And we don't have to also to forget something that is absolutely fundamental in our world. And for Andorra also has been very important, that is the action of women. Women educated have been able to claim their rights. So they acquired by themselves the vote, convincing men in a patriarchal system that they have the right not only to participate on the political life, to vote, to be elected, but also, of course, with to be part of the economy. So these changes that came at the second part of the 20th century has shaped Andorra and are based and have the key in education. For us, is really one of the key areas that we are trying to push. Another part we have been seeing in this video, that the very beautiful landscape of the snow, summer and the spring, and very beautiful, but mountains are sensitive. So climate, environment, and more specifically mountain topics are one of our priorities altogether, and more specifically climate change on mountains, the crisis that we are experimenting, and we are working together from the perspective of the science as well. That is something that the PGA nowadays has been insisting all the time in that. As I mentioned, equality of gender is one of our favorite issues. We have gender equality in our institutions, and has been by themselves, except the government, because they are elected by the Prime Minister. So he decided that we have to be a country that is really good at that. On the other hand, in this social perspective of equality, no discrimination at all, we have another priority, that is protection of children. For Andorra people, a society that has been, as I said, very poor, subjected to very difficult situations in the high mountains, in a range that has been the border between two powers that had been really fighting against each other for many times, and very far away of we can say maybe some advancements. Protection of children has been also very important. So we have this kind of sensitivity from the past. Nowadays, we have to say that we have good systems, and said, but here at the United Nations, there are areas that, thanks to the actions of the Secretary General, children children and armed conflict as well, and violence against children, these areas are for us very important, and we try to contribute to their action. And let me also mention something that is our responsibility, that is multilingualism. Andorra, between two countries, has a language that is the official one, the unique one. The word unique is something that we love that, but we have Catalan as official language. But for education, we have a very interesting system or organization, because they have the French system that is free. We have the Spanish system as well that is free, and also the Andorran one that is free for everyone. So if you are parents of children, you can choose what you decide that it could be more convenient for you. So the multilingualism is not only a question of border, but mainly on education. All of the children nowadays that are learning as well, not only these three languages, French, Spanish, and Catalan, but also another one. And there is a very important community of Portuguese people, so they are able to learn Portuguese. And of course, they are not like me because they are more educated on that, but they are very fluent in English. So the multilingualism is something that is part of that. And we are trying also to defend it at United Nations. We know how strong is English and the lingua as a lingua franca. But we understand also that it's not only a matter of a language that we could share, it's also systems of thoughts, system of, for instance, on international law or domestic law. So there are a lot of traditions. Needless to say, because you know better than me, how are the priorities in the United Nations, very complicated, and how numerous are the items on the agenda. But I don't want to forget something that is important, that is international justice. International justice has been one of the parts that when Andorra became part of the United Nations also understood that it's very necessary to provide with justice. International law, it's really something that we are discussing every day with conventions and trying to develop that. But how also to have in a country or from a country like ours that borders us are really shaping our personality, our identity, how to be international, and justice is also really very, very necessary position. Needless to say, and with that, I'm going to start to wrap up because I know that maybe it's more interesting to have a conversation and questions. That let's say that we have other areas that are so necessary at United Nations, and we don't want to be a part of that. And that means development. And there are many areas that we could really work on. That is the SDGs. SDGs has been one of our favorite agenda because it's universal one, and every country is responsible for that. We have been presenting our voluntary national reviews twice, and it's a measure that has been adopted by Andorra in a very strong way because, for instance, our budget is analyzed also through the SDGs. That is a very interesting part. And then there are areas of cooperation that we try to also to develop, and with priorities I mentioned, the children, environment, equality of women and gender, no discrimination, etc. And we have a future in front of us, of course, all of us we have, but this is our common agenda. Our common agenda is a very interesting area that is trying to go beyond 2030, as you know. We in that case understand that it's necessary to have this vision that to go ahead. But how to fulfill SDGs, how to try to go ahead with that is the United Nations fit for purpose. We are really convinced on that, but we have to repeat that because it's very important. There are a lot of threats on this regard. And as challenges, you can imagine that a small country like ours in a organization that is so enormous are really semi-scale. Just for the anecdote, when I arrived here at the end of 2015, as you said, Dr. Durbach, and for maybe the 3 first years, I discovered every single day a kind of body, a kind of agency, a kind of part of United Nations that were specifically devoted to some area. So it's an enormous machine. But I think that all of the countries, the small or bigger. We have all of us similar problems. In order to have the focus, which is the focus that we need now to defend the organization, to be more to the detail. Maybe we are, as a whole, we are three diplomats in this mission that we have also the rest of North America under our competencies, but other countries that has maybe 50 or 80 diplomats, people working on there, or advisors, has also more ambition than that. So they have the same problem. So I think that the discussion deserves that all the countries, size matters, finally, all the countries could contribute on that. But the important part is to have this purpose, to have this action-oriented organization, and to select maybe what could create the architecture. We have been, as many of my colleagues said, we have been working on silos for many years. It's our duty as member states, or maybe duty, or maybe a point of view that we could put things better together as member states, because we need to have this holistic approach at every stage. But of course, this is very easy to say and very easy to explain, but not as easy to be implemented in concrete actions, because finally we are submitted to so many conditions that I really admire all those that are working at the Secretariat, and maybe another missions that are leading some of the processes on that. I think that I could stop here, and because I am really very happy to answer or to continue the conversations in a more interactive way. But thank you so much for your attention so far. And Dr. Durbach, over to you, or the moderator, Susie.
Well,
thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. It was very interesting to learn about Andorra. I once visited it many years ago.
I think that you have to...
Pardon? I'm what? You cannot hear me?
I can hear you, Dr. Durbach. Ambassador, maybe it's on your side. Can you hear us?
Maybe you do not have, well, maybe you need to turn on your, yeah. Anyway, I will continue. So thank you very much. I visited Andorra many years ago, and it really is a beautiful, beautiful little place, basically to hide and enjoy. The fact that you only have 77,000 people, it's amazing that you are progressing the way you are, and that you are making an impact. And especially, it's very good that you are part of the United Nations that is focusing on freedom for all. And I will now pass over to Susie Hallock, who is our moderator, who will be asking all the questions that we have received. Over to you, Susie.
Thank you, Dr. Durbach, and thank you so much, Ambassador, for the interesting presentation. Our first question is, why is Andorra not better known to the public despite its outstanding reputation and record at the UN?
Here at the United States, or even in Canada or Mexico, where we are having some kind of relationship, is really very, very difficult to reach this popular area, because we are not a reference. We are not a reference on ski. There are others that are maybe more well, have a better reputation. So the things that we are doing, we are not on the top of the list of this hall of fame, no? But on the other hand, at the United Nations, I don't know if we have really good reputation, but as I said, we try to be very consistent. So if we defend something, if we do not very much interventions and we don't lead many of the issues, but it's because we believe on them, because we think that we can provide even our experience. So I think that we should maybe, after your question, work more and work better at United Nations to be more popular, if you want. But for the general public, I would say that it's really a very difficult program. But thank you for the question.
Thank you for the response. From the perspective of a female interested in working in international affairs, what advice do you have women on this call who would like to pursue a type of career, and maybe as an ambassador, have you experienced the same freedom to voice oppositions in war and conflict resolution situations among your counterparts or in other meetings?
This is a really very important question and interesting point of view, because starting by the end, I think that with our colleague ambassadors, female, we have created there is a kind of complicity. That doesn't mean that you believe exactly the same things or we agree at everything. But we understand maybe that we need what is called in English the togetherness. That is a word I consider that it's very necessary in a multilateral positions. And so I don't know if I can really answer to you properly, but it is kind of advantage to have colleagues that are females. Of course, we have to respond to the instructions and positions of our capitals. But just to let you know that in our ministry, in our country, most of the members of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the ministers themselves are women, are females. And so it's a pattern that has been repeated 6 years ago, and it's going to last almost 4 years more. And it also have some predecessors that were females, and in diplomats also, most of them are females. But we are in Andorra. This is necessary also to maybe to clarify. We are a country that we are not involved in conflicts, because we have the position of what is called neutrality. But that it doesn't mean also that we understand and we are very engaged in everything that could be for peace. For Andorra, we never had an army. The peace have lasted since 1275, so at the end of the 13th century. So we don't know what is war at home. We know what is war in our neighborhoods, and we have been assisting people coming as refugees, maybe more on the past than in the present. That is on one hand better organized, and also at the same hand is more complicated because of the bureaucracy that is the international one. But so the notion of peace is part of our DNA, and we can really do maybe better than on that. And I have to say that also that for males there are, as I said, different positions, but the capability of understanding and dialogue is really very high. I don't know if it's I answer your question, because it was very long and complicated, but we can deep on that if you need that.
It's a helpful response. Thank you. Can you share some of your reflections on Andorra's relationship with the UN? What are some of the key accomplishments or challenges that you'd like to highlight for the audience?
Well, thank you for the question, because I think that one of our accomplishment is we can say that is va de soi, but is our loyalty to the organization. That is important. And at the very beginning, we also maybe were more enthusiastic or more action-oriented, and also we were contributors, as I said, to the international justice, and also we were part of the negotiation and drafting of the Statute of Rome, the international criminal court. Also, we have been part of negotiation from against mines, to elimination mines. In disarmament, maybe we are not so active as we should do, but it's also part of the reflection of this 30th anniversary, that some areas that we could develop much more on that. But nowadays, adapting ourselves in our capabilities and our areas of expertise, and what we think that we could be more contributors. What I would like to highlight, as has already been mentioned, that is our action on climate change and the climate crisis, and how to respond on that. And that means that it's not only the notion, the analysis, but also the capability to have an energy transition, and also to cope with this contradiction of having a very high number of tourists, and how to preserve our landscape. This is our priorities, and also to be part of these actions oriented in other areas that are equality for gender equality, and also the children, as I mentioned. I think that we are developing ourselves. This is a parallel path, so we are learning, and we try to contribute to United Nations as well as the same time.
You mentioned the important sustainable development goal of gender equality. Where can other countries do more, and where can Andorra do more as well to help us collectively achieve that goal?
For many ways, leading by example. This is very important, that these goals can be achieved, but we have to demonstrate that it's possible, and show up that it's not as difficult as this. Then advocacy, insisting, not trying to lecture anyone. This is not the good way, but trying to develop thinking, conversations, interactions, and also being maybe strict on some of the areas that we consider that could be harmful for women. So this ourselves, we have to show that we are able to do that. And of course, there are universal problems and situations that as gender violence against women, that it's a pattern, it's a trend, universal, and there is no country that has been able to really eliminate that from many centuries and now decades, but we can give up. So it's ongoing process, advocacy process, trying to find our colleagues, involving, that's my opinion, involving men. This is really something indispensable in this discussion, to involve them, and never forget that we have to work with the whole society really to reach this possible equality, but mainly respect. The law, we adopted 2-3 years ago, I don't remember exactly, a law, a domestic law against any kind of discrimination. Doesn't matter the conditions of the list was enormous, it's very long. But I think that also it's necessary that member states could have these developments in order to codify what could be the behavior that could be conducive to this respect of women and, of course, equality.
Could you speak a bit about Andorra's approach to immigration? What opportunities are there for students to study or professionals to work in Andorra?
Well, we have we have a system that you have just to apply. If you are interested in studying into our universities. We don't have as maybe a mass migration movement because everything is under control. I have to say that Andorra population has just for mention the story has increased very much at the end of the 20th century, but it was not because vegetative situation, but it was because of the immigration. People that was necessary. Finally, it was the workforce, and most of them decided to stay in Andorra, and that's why we multiplied our population from almost 12. And then we have also to take into account that in this migration, in that movement, there was people coming from everywhere. So our human landscape is also very diverse. Maybe you remember that the video they speak about more than 100 nationalities living over there. But coming back to the conditions for migration nowadays, they are controlled under quotas. If you want to work over there or have your own companies, it's open, but you have to pass the control of quotas on some of the sectors. And if you have to study, if you want to study in our small university, everything is at scale over there. You just have to apply, and there are also special documents for that. We don't, for instance, we don't issue visas. We don't have visas, but we need also to allow people to reside, to live there with documents of that are called the permissions of residence. That's the system. It's not complicated. It's very simple, but there are very different positions. And for the anecdote, we have a minister from the interior that is in charge of that, but all the information is in Catalan. So thank you so much, because every time we have to translate the request, but it works. It works.
Thank you for the information. Do you mind sharing what steps you took in your career that led you to become a UN ambassador, and are there any big projects you can highlight for us?
Well, I have a very modest background because I have been working at many positions or activity sectors, because I started I studied archaeology. I did my philosophical thesis, and also I work as a teacher, and then in art. So I was moving in different areas. But sorry, because I'm going to be personal on that. That I married an Andorran, and that's why I went to Andorra. And that was the beginning of actions related with the culture in the country, the cultural heritage. That is something that is really very important in the diplomacy. It's not just cultural diplomacy. It's the identities and that we could share. This is also another matter. And for some reason, I was at the beginning of the creation of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs 30 years ago, and that's why I worked there for some time. And later I went to work to our parliament. Our parliament is a very interesting one because it's one of the oldest functioning since the beginning of the 15th century. So the history is very important to us. And so I love the place. Just 28 parliamentarians debating among them. Well, and that was also the way to be part of the political system, not political party. So it was a consensual decision that I could come here with modest background and modest expectations, and at the beginning I have to say that it was a little overwhelming, but the way you can engage here, the way how the world can be observed from here, the way you can also be part of the solution, really it's a high responsibility for Andorra, and I consider myself then Andorra, not my personal tastes, but my responsibility is to be there and bring as I can, not only the interest of Andorra that, as you can say, that are really very open, but also the interest to have communities that could be peaceful and work better in development, work better among them.
From a public sector perspective, what does the Andorran government do to help protect the environment? And on the private sector side, what are some of the leading companies in industry in terms of sustainability and helping the environment?
Our government has been working very hard in two main areas. On one part, or maybe more than that. On one part, also the scientific studies. We are working with Spain and France in order to follow up everything that could be related with climate change. Domestically, as in the transition, the energy transition, that is a very important part. We want to be sovereign in energy. That is really a high ambition. And on the other hand, also becoming a country that goes back to the earth, goes back to agriculture that was forgotten for many decades because the area of tourism was more rewarding, but we discovered that it's necessary to maintain this landscape, and we need that cattle, we need agriculture, we need farmers, we need these activities. So these are the main areas, and internationally we want to lead as well the mountain activities related with climate change, mainly with climate change. That is something that started 2 years ago, and we are going to be focused on this issue, I hope, for some time. Companies, they are very small, and they are maybe more startups, and also there is an agency, Andorra Research and Innovation, that is working on that, helping these startups to work on, for instance, the prevention of disasters or even reaction on the disaster. Resilience is one of the key words for all of us, but mainly in these situations that you don't have a plan B. You are there and there isn't anything else that your mountain, there's no that is going, falling as an avalanche, for instance, and so on.
To close out this Q&A, do you mind sharing your favorite part about living in Andorra, and what do you think it's most attractive for those on the line interested in visiting?
Oh, if you visit, you will be very welcome. The country is a small in projection, but it's very big. on mountains because there are a lot of slopes, and I recommend to you to go to take some excursion and go into the high mountains. They are not very high, but the diversity of the landscape, of the biodiversity itself is really very nice. And also you can visit all structures, the institutions like our ancient parliament, that you could understand there in situ how communities can organize themselves, defend themselves without any weapon. So it's my recommendation to you, and thank you for the question. It's really very kind.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you so much for your time and the amazing and insightful responses. I'll turn back to Dr. Durbach to close out.
Thank you, Susie. I have a question, and that is one of the biggest problems that we are facing right now is global overpopulation and its effect on the world and the climate. And my question is, to what extent do you think that a community like Andorra can have any influence on the importance of keeping families small and making adjustments for the fact that we cannot destroy the planet and expect to keep it the way it is?
To me, thank you for the question. To me, maybe as I said, is using data, using the scientific approach that has been developed for many years. We work on that. The systems for food are also analyzed by United Nations. We are part of that. We understand also that the energy is limited if we have renewables. So we understand that, and I think it's science. It's really key on that. But I have to say that our birth rate is one of the lowest in Europe, and you know that in Europe it's low. So yeah. it's in our case. I think that maybe it should be analyzed in another ways, but in another way. But it's important to analyze how are the resources, because you know that when you have some message that could be alarming, there are voices, oh no, this is not going to happen because so and so. If we have data, and nowadays we have really very good ones, we could understand that things have to be kept in another way. How to convince other countries that have our kind of the culture and that opposite like ours, that we have this birth rate that is so low, that we need to think about that. So it's a kind of balance, and never imposing thoughts and this position, but maybe believing and very, very strongly on science and projections in the future. That could be helpful to reorganize our society and also reorganize the resources, the distribution of resources that also are part of the problem, because they are really, they are wasting a lot of things, and maybe other parts don't have anything. So it's a matter more complicated that just to me, this increase of the population. That's my personal opinion, of course.
Well,
I'm sorry, would it be possible for me to ask a question?
Oh, certainly.
Thank you very much.
Could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Isabel Ballot. I'm a former colleague of Mrs. Hanifa, Dr. Hanifa Metsoui, and I will continue to work together in the context of the Center for Diplomacy and Strategy in Paris. And so I'm very happy to have heard the current presentation. It was very interesting and very So there's a lot of information about Andorra. I heard that you're supporting the status of Rome and that you're a signatory of the status. So were you among the 26 countries that seized the court in relation to Ukraine? Thank you very much.
If I may, thank you very much for your question. That it's really very relevant. With regard to your question and the how to be seized on this issue to the with ICC. This is not we are not in that group of this core group as you said, but it doesn't mean that we can't believe on that. But this is a very a more complicated area to study, and we need really to have more elements. But we try to follow everything is done on that, and of course not only our solidarity, but also the understanding, as I said, that the international justice is a very basic pillar for having lasting peace, and having a better understanding is part of our not only feelings but compromise and engagement. And
well, thank you very much for your perspective on it. It is unfortunate that there are countries that absolutely have no respect, not only for democracy, but the freedom of other nations to decide the government that they choose. And it's admirable that Andorra was never wanted to be absorbed by anybody else, but respected their right to pursue your own views and your own future. So thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing your thoughts about Andorra and about the climate change and other issues. And we wish you a very, very good and successful continuation of your career and a very good week. Thank you. Goodbye.